faut toujours savoir que tout progrès technique se paie, que tout bonheur de l'homme se paye, et qu'il faut toujours se demander quel est le prix que l'on va payer. Il suffit par exemple de prendre, quand Hitler est arrivé au pouvoir, on a dit mais les Allemands sont fous, ils ont tous été pour Hitler, ou presque. Bien sûr, Hitler a fait disparaître le chômage très rapidement, il a redonné aux marques toute sa valeur très rapidement, il a fait multiplier brusquement la croissance économique très rapidement. Comment voulez-vous qu'une population peu informée et qui voit ces miracles économiques se produire, comment voulez-vous qu'il soit contre? Il suffisait de se poser la question, quel est le prix? Qu'est-ce que l'on paye? Qu'est-ce que l'on va payer en échange de ce progrès économique? C'est très difficile, dans une société comme la nôtre, précisément, que l'homme puisse être responsable. Je prends un exemple simple, un barrage électrique qui craque. Qui est responsable? Il y a les géologues qui ont fait l'étude du terrain, il y a les ingénieurs qui ont établi le profil du barrage, il y a les ouvriers qui ont construit le barrage, il y a les hommes d'État qui ont pris la décision de faire le barrage à cet endroit. Qui est responsable? Personne. Il n'y a jamais de responsable, nulle part. Et dans toute la société technicienne, parce que les tâches sont toutes particularisées, c'est-à-dire divisées en petites fractions, il n'y a jamais de responsable. Mais en même temps, il n'y a jamais d'homme libre. Ils sont tous insérés à un certain niveau du travail à faire, et puis c'est tout. Le gouverneur, à un moment, le directeur du camp de Belsen pendant les procès d'Auschwitz. On lui a, procès de Nuremberg, au sujet d'Auschwitz et de Belsen, on lui a demandé, mais enfin, vous n'étiez pas effrayé par tous ces cadavres? Il a répondu, mais que voulez-vous? Les fours crématoires étaient insuffisants, je n'arrivais pas à brûler tous les cadavres, ça me créait des difficultés extraordinaires. Qu'est-ce que vous voulez? Je n'avais pas le temps de penser aux gens qui mouraient. Moi, ce qui m'intéressait, c'était le problème technique de mes fours crématoires. Là, nous sommes en présence de l'homme totalement irresponsable, qui n'a qu'une tâche technique à faire, et le reste ne l'intéresse pas.
But myths are fiction. The stories they tell aren't true. They're lies and therefore worthless, even though breathed through silver. They're just beautiful lies. You can't seriously believe in fairy tales.
Why not? I can, in fact, I do.
But this is preposterous. How can you seriously believe a lie?
Oh, Jack, myths are not lies. In fact, they're the very opposite of a lie. Myths convey the essential truth, the primal reality of life itself.
Go on.
Well, you see, we have been duped into using the word myth as being synonymous with a lie, because we have been duped into accepting the first real lie of materialism.
And what is that?
That is the hideous claim that there is no supernatural order to the universe. The materialists have imprisoned us in a world of mere matter, of physical facts, divorced from and devoid of metaphysical truth. Well, I say that they're lying. I say that they are the ones who have come up with a false myth. Their world doesn't exist. It's merely a figment of their imagination. Well, fine. However, there's a problem. The problem is they've convinced us that it is true. They have made us believe that this is all there is. 3 dimensions, 5 senses, 4 walls.
Isn't it?
Most emphatically not. Jack, the 4 walls of materialism are the 4 walls of a prison, and the materialists are our jailers. Don't you see? They've put us in a prison of 4 walls. They don't want us to see what's beyond those walls. They don't want us to discover what lies outside their narrow philosophy. Worse than that, they think that any attempt to escape from the prison is an act of treason.
Primordial man, that is to say, human beings for the great bulk of our history, connected to the most obvious fact of nature, to the seasons, to the elements, to the moving of the planet beneath our feet, to the rising and the setting of the sun and the moon. And as a result, the creation of sacred time, the acknowledgement of the sanctity of the extraordinary world of symmetry and magnificence into which we as created beings have been placed.
Those who fail, those who are deemed ugly, weak, or poor, are belittled and mocked. Human beings are used, betrayed, and discarded in a commodity culture. Freedom can no longer be conflated with the free market, and the travails of the poor are rapidly becoming the travails of the middle class, especially as unemployment insurance runs out. Class warfare, once buried under the happy illusion that we were all going to enter an age of prosperity with unfettered capitalism, is returning.
Cyberspace is a metaphorical idea which is supposed to be the space where your consciousness is located when you're using computer technology on the internet, for example. The most interesting thing about the term, for me, is that it made me begin to think about where one's consciousness is when interacting with other kinds of media. For example, even when you're reading, where are you? What is the space in which your consciousness is located? And when you're watching television, where are you? Who are you? Because people say with the internet, for example, it's a little different in that you're always interacting, or most of the time, with another person. And when you're in cyberspace, I suppose you can be anyone you want. There's something very different from face-to-face co-presence with another human being. New technology, this kind or any other kind, is a kind of Faustian bargain. It always gives us something important, but it also takes away something that's important. That's been true of the alphabet, the printing press, and telegraphy right up through the computer. For instance, when I hear people talk about the information superhighway, it will become possible to shop at home and bank at home and get your texts at home and get entertainment at home and so on. I often wonder if this doesn't signify the end of any meaningful community life. I mean, when two human beings get together and they're co-present, there is built into it a certain responsibility we have for each other. And when people are co-present in family relationships and other relationships, that responsibility is there. You can't just turn off a person. On the internet, you can. And I wonder if this doesn't diminish that built-in human sense of responsibility we have for each other. Then also, one wonders about social skills. That after all, talking to someone on the internet is a different proposition from being in the same room with someone. Not in terms of responsibility, but just in terms of revealing who you are and discovering who the other person is.
Bien entendu, le sacré n'est pas toujours le même. Mais l'homme a toujours respecté. Et lorsque une puissance détruisait ce que l'homme avait à un moment dans une société, à une époque, appelé le sacré, alors l'homme vénérait, respectait cette nouvelle force qui avait manifesté qu'elle était plus forte. C'est-à-dire que c'était un sacré qui était plus sacré que l'autre. Et c'est un des aspects qui est très grave dans notre société, c'est que la technique, ayant détruit tout ce que l'homme considérait ou appelait le sacré, dans la nature, etc., eh bien l'homme est spontanément amené à regarder la technique comme du sacré. C'est ça qui est l'élément extrêmement grave. Alors, le sacré autrefois était toujours dans la nature, et maintenant la nature elle est tout à fait désacralisée, et c'est la technique qui apparaît à l'homme moderne comme du sacré. Je pense à ce scandale chaque fois qu'il y a une manifestation dans les rues. Eh bien, ce qui scandalise vraiment les gens, c'est quand les manifestants brûlent une automobile. Alors ça, c'est la destruction d'un objet sacré, absolument.
Lately, strange new things sometimes appeared in the sky. Noisy birds that flew without flapping their wings. One day, something fell from the sky. He had never seen anything like this in his life. It looked like water, but it was harder than anything else in the world. He wondered why the gods had sent this thing down to the earth. It was the strangest and most beautiful thing they had ever seen, and they wondered why the gods had sent it to them. Albo got his finger stuck in the thing, and the children thought he was very funny. At first, he tried the thing out to cure thongs. It had the right shape and just the right weight. It was also beautifully smooth and ideal for curing snakeskin. And Carbo discovered you could make music on it. And every day they discovered a new use for the thing. It was harder and heavier and smoother than anything they'd ever known. It was the most useful thing the gods ever given them, a real labor-saving device. But the gods had been careless. They had sent only one. And now, for the first time in their lives, here was a thing which could not be shared because there was only one of it. Suddenly everybody needed it most of the time. A thing they had never needed before became a necessity. And unfamiliar emotions began to stir. A feeling of wanting to own, of not wanting to share. And other new things came. Anger, jealousy, hate, and violence. He was angry with the gods. He shouted, "Take back your thing, we don't want it. Look at the trouble it brought." But the gods did not take it back. He shouted, "You must be crazy to send us this thing, take it back." Then he shouted, "Look out, look out!" But he spoke too late, and the thing felled his daughter, Kani. He carried the thing away from the shelter and buried it. That evening, there was no laughter and no chatter around the family fire. He said, "I have buried the thing. It will not make us unhappy again."
You know, in El Salvador right now, there's 225 factories. Used as an example, 225 maquila factories, 70,000 young women working in those factories. They produce 581 million garments a year for export to the United States. It's up now, it's 50 million garments a month. El Salvador, tiny El Salvador, is the 7th largest exporter of apparel to the United States worldwide. Imports of apparel have grown from 198 million in 1992 to 1.2 billion last year, a 600% increase. Everything's booming, except worker rights. There's not one single union in any of the maquila in El Salvador because it's not allowed. Despite the pregnancy test, the starvation wages, the beatings, the humiliation, people being stripped of their rights, despite all of that, the heat, the lack of water, the locked bathrooms, there's not one single union because every time the workers try to defend themselves, they're fired and blacklisted. Not one. The maquila is booming. Now there's talk in El Salvador of lowering the wages from 60 cents an hour to 36 cents an hour. They say it's too high, the 60 cents. This is the World Trade Organization. They're saying it's too high.
It is an invisible, immortal force that surrounds and steers all things, omnipotent and even limitless. An invisible hand that it is said makes the world go around. Yet money today is an abstraction. At most, symbols on a piece of paper, but usually mere bits in a computer. It exists in a realm far removed from materiality, and in that realm, it is exempt from nature's most important laws. For it does not decay and return to the soil as all other things do, but it is rather preserved, changeless in its vaults and computer files, ever growing thanks to interest. It bears the properties of eternal preservation and everlastingness, both of which are profoundly unnatural. Looking down from the Olympian heights, Eisenstein writes, the financiers called themselves masters of the universe, channeling the power of the God they serve to bring fortune and ruin or ruin upon the masses, to literally move mountains, raise forests, change the course of rivers, cause the rise and fall of nations. Like the clergy of a dying religion, they exhort their followers to greater sacrifice while blaming their misfortunes either on sin, greedy bankers and irresponsible consumers, or on the mysterious whims of God, the financial markets. What we call recession, earlier cultures might have called God abandoning the world. Money is disappearing, and with it, another property of spirit, the animating force of the human realm. At this writing, all over the world, machines stand idle, Eisenstein writes. Factories have ground to a halt, construction equipment that sits derelict in the yard. Parks and libraries are closing, and millions go homeless and hungry, while the housing units stand vacant and food rots in the warehouses. Yet all the human and material inputs to build the houses, distribute the food, and run the factories still exist. We do not realize that our concept of the divine has attracted to it a God that fits that concept and given it sovereignty over the earth by divorcing soul from flesh, spirit from matter, and God from nature. We have installed a ruling power that is soulless, alienating, ungodly, and unnatural.
I think that I've been blamed for everything. I am basically there to make money. I cannot and do not look at the social consequences of what I do. I am basically there to make money. I cannot and do not look at the social consequences of what I do.
Until you change the way money works, you change nothing. Anything else is masturbation. Any politician, any reporter, any pundit, any columnist who uses the word growth in terms of economics to you from now on, you hear it. You hear Mitt Romney or the half-witted IQ Rick Perry of Texas, or Michelle Bachmann, or Barack Obama get up and tell you, we will get America back on the path to growth. You hear anybody say that word, they are your enemy. You know that.
They called it terror of everyday life. It's headline stuff, shocking and confounding, happening more and more. But no one left to right seems to have much to say on the subject. In the summer of 1966, Charles Whitman left a suicide note, climbed a tower at the University of Texas, and shot 14 people to death. In the ensuing years, the term going postal emerged, referring to a slowly rising incidence of workplace killings. But in the past 10 years, since Kip Kinkle at Thurston in 1998, that's the town next to ours in Oregon, suicidal multiple homicide rampages have become commonplace. Columbine 99 and a quickening recent string, for example, Cho at Virginia Tech last spring, the 19-year-old Omaha mall shooter in December, the honor student at Northern Illinois University last month, 4 school shootings in 1 week in February, in fact. The explanations are so weak as to be barely even voiced. It's about too many guns. I was brought up in the 1950s in a household containing many firearms. No one went to school to shoot other children. Guns have been everywhere in this culture, but the shootings are a current deepening reality. It's due to the closure of mental health facilities. As if in the past such individuals would have been institutionalized, most of these individuals showed no psychotic symptoms at all. If everyone on antidepressants were suspect, millions would have to be on locked wards. No, there's a pathology abroad that is too much to contemplate within the dominant discourse. Too much is implicated. So many words about terrorism. All the terrorism, the threat of terror attacks, those Islamic suicide bombers. Hey, let's not forget those eco-terrorists. Of course, one is far more likely to be a victim of gunfire at a school, in a mall, at the workplace, than to be blown up in war on terror hostilities. The real terror increasingly is that of daily life in mass society. Meanwhile, many are consumed by the latest cycle of electoral nonsense and manipulation. Can you imagine any politician touching the shootings epidemic with a 1,000-foot pole? Denial still reigns, but is being stalked in a grisly way. The rot at the core of industrial life is now rotting all the way through. The decomposition is far advanced and exposed for all to see. What's happening in society is the flip side of the rapid destruction of the biosphere. There has been a very disturbing jump in the number of parents killing their own children. On February 18th, the Center for Disease Control reported that the suicide rate among middle-aged Americans has jumped 20% in the last 5 years. In recent months, a county in Wales has endured an explosion of teen suicides, and so it goes. Stress, depression, insomnia, anxiety on the rise. People with no hope are signing out and taking others with them. The crisis of meaning is not just a postmodern catchphrase. We find ourselves adapting and justifying as meaning, texture, community, freedom slip away from our lives. Isaac Asimov's Robots of Dawn describes a technoculture in which the face-to-face has all but vanished. Sound familiar? Welcome to the dead zone and its no future, where only one of the delusions is that life in this industrialized technoculture could ever be green, sustainable, or healthy. Time to wake up and smell the gun smoke.
Spending on human beings by companies has gone up 2%, that's all. And of course, unemployment has increased. Well, spending on software, hardware, technology has gone up 26%. Are we already seeing automation having a major impact on employment?
I believe we are, and it's not something that's just happening instantly right now. It's been going on for some time. Over the past couple of decades, at least what we've seen is that the wages for average workers have basically been stagnant in spite of the fact that we've seen significant increases in productivity. And basically all the fruits of innovation and of productivity are really going to business owners and to management at this point, and very little to labor. And I think automation has a lot to do with that.
I love this session because it's truly about the Renaissance, and in fact my talk today is about the next human Renaissance. Regardless of what came along and didn't come along, the big learning we took from that is that people began to treat that machine like Mary, which was what we called her Mary. And so people called her Mary, they talked to Mary, they said all kinds of obscene things to Mary. That's what they did. And this was a very, very interesting experiment. And it took a lot of horsepower at that time. That's me standing in the operations center at that time. There were dozens and dozens of rows and thousands of computers to make that service work way back in 97. In the past, when we looked to outsource labor and to drive down the cost of goods, we would go further and further away from the United States, and eventually went to China, and all of our goods are made in China. Many of our goods are made in China today. However, just in the last 2 or 3 years, the tipping point has occurred in China, where now robotics and automation are cheaper than the average Chinese factory worker wage. Now that's a real issue. That's a real issue because there's no further to go. So what happens is the 400,000 people working on your iPhones today might be 40,000 just a few years from now. And in fact, why even make it over there? You can make it here, because if it's all robotics, the cost is the same. And that's a huge tipping point. We have never seen that point before. By the way, we saw the $1 million robot. Here's the $25,000 robot. It does much more than the $1 million robot did. And with a simple software upgrade, doubled its capacity in 1 year. Can you double your capacity with a software upgrade in a year? I can't. This is faster than any human can do the job. And it pays for itself in 1 year, and after that it's free for the next 20. One human can run dozens of these things. His name is Baxter, by the way. So now we're reaching a tipping point where the technology as a whole, computer, sensors, robotics, and communication, are faster, smarter, more reliable than humans already today. They'll work all the time, far less expensively, and they're factual. They don't lie, and they don't guess. We could break down the end of human work into 3 categories: now, soon, and 50 years from now. Now, soon, and 50 years from now. And I'm going to pose the fact, in my mind, that in fact all of the jobs go away within the next 50 years. And this is happening already. Over the last 20 years, we've seen routine occupations head downhill as a percentage of our workforce. So more of our workforce is working in more complex opportunities that are using our minds more.
What would you say is happening to man, American man, in relationship to his work?
I think his work is to a large extent meaningless because he is not related to it. He is increasingly part of a big machinery, social machinery, governed by a big bureaucracy. And I think American man unconsciously hates his work very often because he feels trapped by it, imprisoned by it, because he feels that he's spending most of his energy for something which has no meaning in itself.
By meaning in itself, he uses his work to make a living, certainly yes. That is dignified, sensible, and necessary.
Yes, but that is not quite enough to make one happy if one spends 8 hours a day in something which in itself has no meaning and interest except that one gains money from it.
Well, by meaning and interest in work, maybe I'm pressing this unnecessarily hard. What specifically do you mean? When a man works at a factory with a monkey wrench, let us say, what meaning, what deeper meaning are you looking for?
Well, there is a creative pleasure which, for instance, the artisan in the Middle Ages or in a country like Mexico still today has, namely the pleasure of creating something. Now you find quite a few skilled workers who still have that pleasure. Maybe in a steel mill, maybe a worker who works with a complicated machine. He has a sense that he's creating something. But if you take a salesman who sells a useless commodity, he feels like a fraud and he hates his commodity like something.
Mm-hmm.
Et l'homme qui est pris toute la journée dans un travail qui l'ennuie a besoin d'un divertissement, a besoin de changer d'idée. Et alors, le mot divertissement est d'ailleurs significatif parce que chez Pascal, quand Pascal emploie le mot divertissement, il veut dire que l'homme qui est orienté vers Dieu est détourné du chemin qui le mènerait à Dieu par un divertissement. Il s'amuse. Au lieu de penser à Dieu, il s'amuse. Bon. Chez nous, c'est au lieu de penser aux problèmes soulevés par la technique, notre métier, etc., etc., nous cherchons un divertissement. On s'amuse. Et l'amusement, le divertissement est produit par des techniques, mais des techniques qui sont dictées par les techniques humaines. C'est parce que l'on connaît bien la psychologie de l'homme dans telle et telle condition, de l'homme qui travaille dans telle et telle condition, qu'on lui fournit le divertissement qui va servir de compensation, en définitive. L'homme du monde technicien est prêt à ne plus être un sujet en échange de facilité, de consommation, de sécurité, en échange de tout un ensemble de bien-être que lui apporte cette société. Et en y réfléchissant, je pensez à l'histoire dans la Bible de Ésaü et du plat de lentilles. Ésaü, qui a faim, est prêt à échanger la bénédiction de Dieu et la promesse de Dieu contre le plat de lentilles qu'on lui apporte. Eh bien, de la même façon, l'homme moderne est prêt à abandonner sa situation de sujet contre le plat de lentilles que lui donne la société technicienne. Seulement, de même que Ésaü a été trompé dans son échange, de la même façon, l'homme qui abandonne sa situation de sujet est également trompé dans la société technicienne. En effet, il cesse d'être un sujet au profit de mensonges, au profit de mensonges. Il ne voit pas que dans son choix, il est manipulé, c'est-à-dire qu'il est transformé à l'intérieur par la publicité, par les médias, etc., etc. Compte tenu du fait que le manipulateur, celui qui crée la publicité ou celui qui crée la propagande, est lui aussi manipulé. Et que par conséquent, il n'y a pas un méchant qui est responsable, celui qui fait de la publicité et puis des pauvres gens. Non, nous sommes tous responsables en même temps.